You know something, Mean Gene?
You're gonna be mine. Woo! He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
And you will be excellently executed.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Oh yeah.
You are now watching WrestleDrop on YouTube. WrestleMania. The second annual WrestleMania. We have now come off WrestleMania 1 in 1985, and this is WrestleMania 2 in 1986. They are trying to recreate the magic of WrestleMania 1, trying to recreate the spectacle that is WrestleMania 1. Were they successful? Maybe in terms of creating the spectacle of a show, but when it comes to a wrestling show, this may have fallen flat. So, with that being said, let's get into WrestleMania 2 from 1986. Let's go. See, the WWF are basically trying to copy the NWA here. And I don't mean in the idea of WrestleMania, because we all know that was a copy of Starrcade, but also with the different venues for one event. Because we all know Starrcade 85 emanated from two different places. Now WrestleMania 2 is emanating from 3 different places. So it feels like Vince McMahon just tried to one-up the NWA. Did it work? No. Did Starrcade work? No. These multi-venue shows do not work because you just have so many meaningless matches, and then in between you have the main event from each show. Does not work, makes for a boring and pretty uneventful show if I'm being honest. And I do think the other issue is then the main events from the other shows can't be as good as the real main event. So it was slightly disappointing. WrestleMania 2 emanated from Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. So I don't know where those places are on the American flag or the American map, but yeah, they seem pretty far apart. With that being said, Ray Charles does the national anthem for WrestleMania. We have a couple promos, and we get into the very first match, which was Paul Orndorff versus Don Muraco. Apparently, this is the first time they've ever faced off. I don't know if that's WWE telling lies that they want us to believe, or if that is the truth, but some weird audio issues early on. But I will say, if you tell me I'm going to watch a match between Paul Orndorff and Don Muraco, I'm going to be like, okay, let me see that. That could be decent. That could have some good work in it. And it did, but the match was just far too short. Like, when they worked, Paul Orndorff was working pretty well. Don Muraco was doing his job. Things were going well. And then they just weren't. So let me get into some play-by-play. So Orndorff starts with a pair of power slams early on, which puts Muraco on the back foot straight away. Orndorff lands a big backdrop and then follows up with a couple of arm drags and then locks in the arm and does a hold on Don Muraco's arm for quite a while. That becomes the large portion of this very short match. And that work by Orndorff was really, really good. I thought this guy, it reminds me every time that Orndorff is one of the most underrated people from this era. But yeah, Muraco can't escape the hold that Orndorff has on until he finally lands a Samoan drop onto Orndorff. Both men then fight and fall to the outside, and they continue fighting to the point where Don Muraco rams Orndorff's head into the post. Orndorff just no-sells it because they're actually supposed to have a little bit of a battle, you know, a little bit of a rough and rowdy fight on the outside. So he no-sells it so they can carry on the rough fights on the outside. And while this is all happening, the ref counts to 10 countouts. Very quick countouts, because some other matches, people were out the ring for longer than 10. So, yeah, very quick countouts. Very short match, must have been like 3 minutes. Which for an opening match, yeah, they got the crowd excited for that time being. But afterwards, the crowd chanted bullshit. There were bullshit chants from the crowd. And Vince McMahon on commentary, terrible commentary by the way. Vince McMahon on commentary actually acknowledges the crowd chanting this. So yeah, hopefully he learns from that. We know he doesn't. But yeah, so I can't really give this match a rating. It was just too short. Like I say, anything less than 5 minutes, we cannot rate. With that being said, let's move on to the very next match. This is all from New York, I think, by the way. Randy Savage versus George the Animal Steele for the Intercontinental Championship. Randy Savage is the Intercontinental Champion at this time. A lot of stalling in the beginning from Randy Savage as per usual. This match, man. I was thinking I was going into play-by-play, and now when I'm doing the play-by-play, I'm thinking, yo, this match was terrible. Terrible. I did not enjoy it. It's as if Randy Savage doesn't know how to approach this match from the beginning. And I don't know, that's obviously maybe a work, because George Animal Steele is... He's something. He's something. I don't know how to describe George. You know, if a non-wrestling fan came up to me and said, please describe George the Animal Steele, I want to know more about this man. I would not know where to begin. Like, where do you start with George the Animal Steele? What is he? Anyway, Savage then tries to bait Steele as by running around the ring, but eventually Steele actually catches him as Savage tries to get in the ring and bites and gnaws on his leg. Yeah, he was clearly a hungry man. There was a double axe handle. There was a double elevator choke from George the Animal Steele, and then he just tossed Savage to the ground. Steele then gets distracted by his love for Miss Elizabeth. That man is just absolutely in love with that woman. I can't blame him too much, but she's a married woman. Leave her alone. Anyway, Randy Savage then attacks him during this time, and then George the Animal Steele actually gets stuck between the ropes for a little bit, and the ref has to get him out. They then get a crossbody from Randy Savage, but Steele kicks out and tosses Randy out of the ring in the kickouts. Randy Savage then climbs out the ring and then blindsides Steele, giving him the advantage for the moment. Savage then also grabs a bouquet of flowers, goes up to Steele and just paintbrushes him with the flowers. That happened. George then bites into, after a little bit back and forth with the bouquet of flowers, George then bites into the turnbuckle pad and rips it apart. He's done this is his gimmick. If you don't know this, he bites open the turnbuckle pad and eats the sponge or the fluff that's in the turnbuckle pad, the actual padding. Anyway, he also shoves that into the face of Randy Savage. Maybe he thought Randy Savage was also hungry. There's a top rope axe handle on Steele from the outside from Randy Savage. A power slam followed by Randy Savage's elbow drop, and you think, that's it. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Nope. George the Animal Steele kicks out, but Randy Savage gets the win shortly after as he double leg takedowns. George the Animal Steele gets his legs on the ropes, and the ref counts to 3 anyway. Terrible match. An absolute joke of a match. I get that there's a story between George and Miss Elizabeth and his sympathy and his love for her and him wanting to get her away from Randy Savage. But they buried Randy Savage's finisher firstly. They're making Savage look like an idiot. Savage deserves to be in a better storyline. The IC title deserves to be in a better situation. But what can I say? I guess things worked out when we get to WrestleMania 3 and they put that title in a much better place. But they just made everybody look dumb in this whole situation. 1 star, let's move on. I spoke about that for way too long already. We then had a match between Jake Roberts and George Wells, another really short match. George Wells gets like 2 cheers when they announce him and, call out his name. To be honest, Jake Roberts doesn't get much of a cheer either. This is obviously early into his run. We know the DDT chants come flying in soon enough. But yeah, the fight starts right away with Jake Roberts going straight for George Wells. And it already seems like Jake Roberts bit off more than he can chew. Big shoulder tackle from George Wells and terrible looking leapfrog from Jake Roberts. George Wells shows off his pretty good athleticism as he lands a head scissor on Jake Roberts. Big guy to land a head scissors, so that was pretty cool. Big power slam from George Wells, like I wouldn't say a running power slam, kind of like there was a momentum in the power slam, put it that way. And that gets a near fall. Jake then rakes at the eyes of Wells, which allows him to take control, and he lands the DDT out like a light, cold. 1, 2, 3. Jake Roberts gets the win. I keep wanting to say Randy Savage when I think of Jake Roberts. I don't know why. My brain is just fried. And then Jake then pulls out Damien, wraps it around George Wells, and George Wells actually starts foaming from the mouth. And I thought this post-match stuff was really, really good compared to the match. The match was whatever, it was a short match, no rating, but the post-match stuff was really good, and that's probably what ended up putting Jake Roberts over during this time, if I'm being honest. But we'll see as time goes on. We then had, I don't know if I want to talk about this match. I didn't even do any play-by-play for this match. We then moved on to the main event for this portion of the show. I think it's the New York portion. Roddy Piper versus Mr. T. Not in a standard singles match, not in a pro wrestling match, but in a boxing match. Why does WWE, and they still do it to this day, insist on doing shoot matches in work format? Why do they insist on doing real fights as a pro wrestling match? Doesn't make sense. The crowd was not here to see boxing, firstly. They were here to see wrestling. And even if they were excited to see boxing, they weren't there to see fake and crap boxing. This is terrible. It's clear that it's fake. It's clear that they're pulling their punches. It's clear that they're not really hitting each other and not looking for a knockout. And it's clear that the moments of momentum are fake. In a boxing fight, you don't get moments of momentum like that. And I'll be honest, I watch a lot of boxing. I'm a boxing fan, so this just deeply disappointed me more. But with that being said, I'm not even going to do play-by-play. I think there was Mr. T got knocked down in round 2. I think Roddy Piper got knocked down in round 3 twice, I think. And then eventually it gets to the point where Piper just loses it. He knocks down Mr. T for like to his knee almost. And then he just comes in and tackles him and then just starts beating on him. Gets a DQ. The match, we had 4 rounds of boxing just to have a DQ. There was always going to be a DQ, but yeah. And how do I even rate this, guys? How do I rate this sort of match? I didn't want to give it a no rating because it's a main event of a portion of the show. Like, it was the main event of the New York portion. And it went on for 10 minutes. 0.5 stars. I think it's fair enough. I can't give it anything more than that. It was terrible, terrible, terrible. One of the worst WrestleMania matches or match types or stipulations in history. And I think we'll come to find that. We then had the next part of the show, which I think was Chicago, which was Fabulous Moolah versus Velvet McIntyre for Fabulous Moolah's Women's Championship. This match lost. I could have gone and made myself a cup of tea, came back, and I would have been on the next match. I would have completely missed this match. Another really, really short match, no rating. Moolah tosses Velvet by her hair over and over and over in the beginning of the match. Velvet makes a comeback, which started off a little bit dodgy, but she really got into it and made a decent comeback with some good drop kicks and stuff like that. She then goes for a crossbody, misses the crossbody, or was it more like a dive? Maybe it was more like just a splash. Misses it. So then Moolah gets up, she pins Velvet's guy, but it looked like a shoot pin. I don't know why it looked so shoot, like she was really putting all her weight down. And I know that's a good thing, but it really looked like the match wasn't meant to end there. Something about it just didn't look great, but I'm sure it was. I think it's just Moolah being the bully that she was. And then she stomps her on her way up, gets the win. What even was this? No rating. Terrible. I'm moving on to another match that was absolutely relevant. I'm hating on this show so much, but it really was not a good WrestleMania, guys. And you can't tell me that it was. You can't tell me that I'm just a youngster that doesn't know what I'm talking about. I wasn't there for the time. Sure, if you were there in the time, seeing these stars would have got you excited. And for me, seeing some of these guys did get me excited. But when you see the work that they put out, it's disappointing. Really disappointing. And the short matches, disappointing. Because you kind of want to give them a chance to give them at least 5 minutes. 7 minutes, 8 minutes of a match, you can get some decent work out of there. And then if it's crap after 8 minutes, it's the worker's fault. But it just feels like they're not giving them any chance to do anything. Or the guys just can't go 8 minutes sometimes. Anyway, we have another match, which is Corporal Kirchner taking on Nikolai Volkoff. Nikolai Volkoff getting all the heat in the world when he sings his Soviet national anthem. The match then starts after Kirchner comes in. Nikolai lands like some spinning kick. I chuckled. I chuckled when I saw the spinning kick because I thought, who are you trying to be here? Who are you? Who do you think you are? Landing spinning kicks. Come on, you know Israel Adesanya. You're Nikolai Volkoff. You weigh 300 pounds and you look like a sack of potatoes. No. Anyway, that really made me laugh. Before then throwing Kirchner to the outside and then throwing him headfirst into the post, causing him to bleed. Didn't get that much blood because the match didn't last very long. Kirchner then fights back and gets the ref thrown down. Then Freddie Blassie gets on the apron while the ref is down, tries to throw his cane to Nikolai Volkoff, but Kirchner catches it, hits Volkoff with it, and he pins him. The ref gets up and counts to 3. No rating. What a waste of a match. Also like a 3-minute match, 2-minute match. So the Chicago crowd has come out, and the very first 2 matches they get on the official card, I'm not talking about dark matches, pre-show matches, whatever. The first matches on the official WrestleMania card go less than 3 minutes each. Do you think you'd be happy with that? And it's not like any of these guys are stars. This was just a cheap pop. That's what it was. Get America a cheap pop against the foreign heel. That's what it was. We then had another match which, if I was in the Chicago crowd, I'd be disappointed with. We had the battle royal between the WWF and the NFL stars. Maybe someone can inform me, were these current NFL stars? Were these retired NFL stars? Were these fringe players? I know nothing about NFL. I watched the Super Bowl on Monday night that just happened. It was Monday morning for me, sorry. South African time. But I don't understand that sport. No hate to the sport at all. I just don't understand it. That's not a thing here. But that's fine. Nothing wrong with the sport. I think it was pretty entertaining nonetheless. But yeah, a couple of decent names in the Rumble. I'm only going to mention the wrestlers because I don't know the NFL stars. There was Andre the Giant. There was Big John Studd. There was Bret Hart. There was Jim Neidhart, Iron Sheik, Bruno Sammartino, and Pedro Morales. They were just thrown in there as well. I don't even think the crowd noticed. Pretty standard battle royale for the most part. Studd got some guy named the Refrigerator out of the ring, and there was a big pop to that, and the commentators made a big deal of that. And then the Fridge baited him in for a handshake to say, like, well done, you got me out, and then he pulled Big John Studd out. I wonder if they ever had a singles match, because that's what that felt like. That was building to. The final three, after a whole bunch of eliminations, ended up being the Hard Foundation and Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant then fights them both, making him look real strong. This was when some decent action was happening for Battle Royale purposes anyway. And then he eliminates Jim Neidhart and Bret Hart. Bret Hart went like from the top rope out. Not over the top rope, from the turnbuckle. That was a pretty good bump. And then Andre the Giant won the Battle Royale. Good for him. I don't think Andre the Giant ever lost the Battle Royale for that matter. The finish was entertaining, like I said. The rest of the Battle Royal was just whatever. Nothing bad necessarily. It got people excited. I'm sure to see these NFL stars got people interested. With that being said, 2 stars. We then move on to Match of the Night. I'm just going to say it out here right now. Match of the Night. So we had the Dream Team of Brutus, Beefcake, and Greg the Hammer Valentine taking on Davey Boy and the Dynamite Kid. I wrote here in my notes, Ozzy Osbourne coked out of his mind is always fun, because that man was not there. He was not at WrestleMania. That man was already at WrestleMania 40. He was already there. Forget about WrestleMania 2. He was there already. He had so much coke up his nose. Yeah, let me stop. Shout out Ozzy Osbourne. Davey Boy and Greg the Hammer Valentine kick things off with some good wrestling, good counter wrestling, but the Bulldogs stay on top and they begin to isolate Greg for a little bit of time. Davey Boy then reverses a suplex attempt by Valentine into a suplex of his own. That was pretty neat. Huge military slam by Davey Boy Smith. He was the star of this match, by the way. Just putting that out there. To Brutus Beefcake, who now made his way back into the ring. The British Bulldogs were just too powerful and intense for the Dream Team. There was no way they could really do anything without a bit of heel tactics. A nice fisherman suplex with a bridge by Davey onto Brutus for a 2 count. That was clean. Shout out Mr. Perfect, because basically a perfect plex. Brutus then gets a tag, and Valentine X-handles Davey Boy from the top rope, and this is where they start to isolate Davey Boy for a little bit. Valentine lands a tombstone piledriver of sorts onto the Dynamite Kid, but he kicks out at 2.99, so they were cooking here. Valentine gets tossed across the ring to the top rope, and Dynamite goes for the ring. Dynamite goes for the pin, but Brutus breaks it up. Davey Boy then lands a running power slam, but Valentine kicks out of that. And then the Dream Team start to isolate Davey Boy and work the arm of him to limit his power. But of course, that didn't help, because now the finish, which I thought was really creative. So for some reason, Dynamite Kid starts climbing the top rope, but it's almost like he's trying to encourage Davey Boy Smith. And in a last-ditch effort, Davey Boy just tosses Valentine that direction, and then he ends up headbutting Dynamite Kid at the same time. Dynamite Kid takes a huge bump to the outside, but that allows Davey Boy to come in and pin Valentine real quick, and they get the win. I thought that was really creative and really fun. It looked maybe a little bit cartoonish, but I thought it was good at the same time. 3.75 stars for this match. Really, really good. I could have given it 4 stars, but I thought to myself, maybe if they had a bit more time. And I know time is not everything, but time allows you to build to a bigger finish. That's all I'm saying. Really, really good match. So much action, no real low points at all. The creative finish was super unexpected. Match of the night for sure. Shout out Davey Boy. He was MVP of this match. Really good match. I thoroughly enjoyed it. New champions, by the way. New champions. That was for the tag titles. And the British Bulldogs are now the WWF Tag Team Champions. We then moved on to the Los Angeles portion of the show, where we had Ricky Steamboat taking on Hercules Hernandez in a pretty decent match, I will be honest. This was not bad by any means. Hercules Hernandez starts off by attacking Steamboat before the bell rings, but Steamboat fights back by dodging his attacks and landing a double chop, which then follows by a pair of arm drags. If you've watched any Steamboat match, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Steamboat then begins to work the arm of Hercules Hernandez from the very start of him getting the upper hand. Then we get a back elbow and a suplex by Steamboat, but then Hernandez lands a huge lariat, which puts Steamboat down to the mat. Steamboat goes for a power slam, but the weight is too much, and Hernandez just falls on top of Ricky Steamboat and gets a 2 count. We then get another back elbow, but this time from Hernandez, and then he elbow drops Steamboat a couple times, goes for a pin, but he kicks out. We then get a big military press slam by Hercules Hernandez, followed by a top rope splash, which Steamboat gets his knees up for, and follows up with a top rope crossbody of his own, earning him the victory in an alright match. Steamboat did most of the exciting work in this match. 2.75 stars. Nothing wrong with it. Above average. Would have been a perfectly fine opener in any other night. But of course, this was now halfway through the card. But it was still the opener for the Los Angeles portion. Real confusing. Unnecessary. Oh, another match I deeply don't want to talk about. We then had Adrian Adonis versus Uncle Elmer. And I will say, Adrian Adonis is a decent worker. He bumps like crazy. He sells like crazy. For a man his size, he should not be able to do this. Uncle Elmer, on the other hand, has the charisma and the athleticism of a potato. Literally. Anyway, I wrote you, I don't want to watch this. I even wrote you, I hate wrestling. This is how this match made me feel, guys. This is really how it made me feel. Adrian Adonis bumped around like crazy, like I mentioned. Very cartoonish, but it kind of made sense for the silliness of this match. If I were to give this match a rating, which I'm not because it's shorter than 5 minutes, I'd give it a big fat boop 0. I would not recommend this to my worst enemy. I would not. Elmer then goes for a leg drop, but misses, allowing Adonis to land a flying headbutt for the win. Adonis could be, if he wasn't paired with Uncle Elmer, could be a very good match. He could put on a very good match. That's all I'm saying. We then had the Funk Brothers versus JYD and Tito Santana in the longest match of the night, which surprisingly was the longest match of the night. JYD having the longest match. Ha! Ha! If you put a bet on that in 1986, you would have been a millionaire. Generational wealth. That's all I'm saying. The match starts off hot with JYD taking it to both the Funks early on. Terry Funk instantly shines in this match, and not even for his offense, but rather for his heel work, his selling, his bumping, all typical Terry Funk stuff that we know he's fantastic at. JYD then smashes Terry's face into the corner 10 times, with the crowd absolutely loving it, because JYD is still so over at this time. JYD then tosses Terry to the outside, which backfires because it allows Dory Funk to get tagged in because Terry Funk just walked closer to Dory. A lot is happening. The match was really chaotic. It wasn't really structured, but it was still entertaining, if that makes sense. The Funks then isolate Tito Santana for a while, build some heat on him, but then Santana gets the hot tag to JYD and the crowd pop like crazy. They went mad for JYD's hot tag. JYD then makes light works of the Funks, sends Terry over the top with a pretty nasty bump from Terry, but that's Terry Funk, and this is pre-ECW Terry Funk. Terry then gets slammed onto a table and a chair at ringside, which is wild for these times. It was a really cool bump. Only Terry Funk would do that on this roster, if I'm being honest. Tito Santana then locks in a figure 4 on Dory, but they aren't the legal men, so the ref shoves them out. And when the ref takes them out, Jimmy Hart tosses his megaphone to Terry Funk, knocks out JYD with the megaphone, and gets the victory. 3-star match, chaotic, not structured, but the pop was crazy for JYD, and Terry Funk shined. Simple as that. I know I mentioned Dory Funk. I think his name was Haas Funk here. It's Dory Funk. Let's move on. Very, very. The second best match. No, not the second best match of the night. A good match to fit on the card. No one would complain. Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy, the main event for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship, the main event of course, the Los Angeles show and of the whole show in general. And this match really surprised me because I went into it thinking, we're obviously going to get King Kong Bundy doing all the work on Hogan, and Hogan fires up. That's it. And yes, it was there to a certain extent, but Hogan got a lot of offense on King Kong Bundy, which is right, because King Kong, or the Heenan family, took out Hogan prior to the match, I assume in prior weeks, which actually hurt the ribs or midsection of Hulk Hogan. So he needed to get his get back. Simple wrestling psychology. Like I mentioned, Hogan is taped up from a previous attack, so you can clearly see his injury. And then Hogan takes it to Bundy with strikes from the bell, like taking it right to him. Hogan tries to slam Bundy into the cage, but Bundy stops himself, and they started building to that first slam onto the cage. But that doesn't stop Hogan from doing more attacks. I thought Bundy would be getting the heat on Hogan, like I mentioned. But the crowd was absolutely electric for this. They were loving it. The cage is terrible. The blue cage is terrible. I just thought I'd mention that real quick. Bundy then fights back with a power slam. And this is when he starts to do his work on Hogan and starts to build heat on Hogan. Bundy drives Hogan rib first into the cage. And then tries to leave out the cage, but Hogan stops him. That was the whole thing. You had to leave the cage to win this match. Hogan kept stopping King Kong Bundy at the last moment, which is perfect psychology. Bundy then rips off the bandage of Hogan and begins to choke Hogan with his own band-aid, I guess that's the word, and he tries to escape again, but Hogan stops him. Hogan then finally sends Bundy face first into the cage, causing Bundy to bleed. There was such an obvious blade job, but I guess it's because I'm looking out for it and I know it's going to happen now, but so obvious. Bundy then gets thrown face first into the cage multiple times after that, causing him to bleed more and more. Hogan then goes for a power slam, but the weight is just too much for him, and Bundy lands on top of him, kind of like the Hercules and Steamboat match. Bundy then lands his avalanche splash in the corner and a big slam, but doesn't have the energy to escape without Hogan stopping him in time. Perfect psychology. I can't hate it. I can't fault it. Hulk Hogan then gets up, lands a power slam, followed by his leg drop, and Hogan climbs out the cage. He actually climbs, not escape through the door. Climbs out the cage for a win. A far more enjoyable match than I thought it would be, and to be honest, it's not a technical masterclass by any means, but it was great for what it was. Got the crowd happy. Hogan got his moment. Hogan was still super over here, so him winning is not a bad thing. I gave the match 3.5 stars, which was surprising, but it was good. I think people hated on it too much just because it's Hogan. On this channel, we're not fans of Hogan. I think I've even got a Hogan guy. There's Hogan. There's a Hogan Funko Pop. Oh, you guys won't see it. I got a green screen. Idiots. I got a Hogan Funko Pop behind me here. But just believe me when I tell you this. Anyway, we're not huge fans of Hogan, but we understand what he did for the business. 3.5 stars. Great match. Post-match, Hogan grabbed Bobby Heenan, got some work on him, threw him into the cage, did some damage to him. Crowd popped even more because Heenan is just a weasel, as we all know. So that was WrestleMania 2. Ended off on an okay note, but the rest of the card was just terrible. Terrible, guys. This is probably the harshest I've been on a show. I think not good. I think Starrcade 85 was not good. No, Starrcade 86 was not good. I'm getting my mixed up now. Starrcade 85 was not good, sorry. And this was not good either. Just what it is. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for subscribing. If you're still watching right now, I appreciate you. And yeah, we'll see you guys for Starrcade 1986.